Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So today's video completes the one part of the series on Rahu in the houses. Okay, we are still left with Ketu in the houses. That will complete next week. Okay, so yesterday we covered Ketu in the 11th house, and next week we are going to cover Ketu in the 12th house, and that will conclude you know the series for both Rahu and Ketu in the houses. Okay, but then today, as I said, we are concluding the series for Rahu in the 12th house. And of course, we started this thing 12 weeks ago with Rahu in the first house, and we've reached the end of our discussion today with Rahu in the 12th house. And in the 12th house, Rahu is known as Adisesha. Okay, and Adisesha can be visualized as a soul survivor, an entity, both original and eternal, that escapes destruction in order to participate in another cycle of creation, that is birth, life, and death. And Adisesha is associated with moksha, which represents the bridge between the physical and astral planes, between reality and imagination. Okay, so such a native will often focus on managing expenses, debts, loans, and at the same time, the native will also be coping with issues arising from segregation, isolation, and solitude. Okay, so this native may be very charismatic when it comes to dealing with topics such as dreams, divination, imaginary worlds, and the psychic phenomena. And from a place of sanctuary, the 12th house is the house of sanctuary. Okay, so it could mean bedroom or retreat or a trance-like state. Such a native may be capable of channeling imagery from unseen worlds. Okay, and these people are very intensely private as well as sexual, and such people may feel that they need to break taboos in order to pierce the veil of reality and see the other side. Okay, I've seen these natives experience a lot of chronic restlessness of body and mind, and face problem in foreign places, or through addictions of some kind. Okay, so how does Rahu in the 12th house behave as? Let's have a look at that. So what we know is Rahu represents desire and obsession, while Ketu denotes ambivalence and detachment. And with Rahu in the 12th, obviously Ketu is going to go to the 6th house. So it can indicate a bias for privacy, sanctuary, secrets, and connections to unseen worlds, sometimes at the cost of one's health, environment, co-workers, and competitive spirit. And because Rahu represents an appetite for worldly experience, okay, what does worldly experience mean? Money, power, sex, and all these things in the 12th house can imply that such primal impulses cannot be indulged publicly, and such a native may crave an experience knowing such experiences are socially unacceptable, and yet they suppress the desire to avoid exposure or censure. Okay, and at other times people may harbor desires without acknowledging their existence, acting on them unconsciously, seemingly possessed by demons that cannot be controlled. I've also seen these people acknowledge weakness as an aspect of their personality, but what they do is that they often end up compartmentalizing their behavior so that it does not disturb their professional or social life. Okay, so whatever the scenario is, it's like an apartment dweller having a pet python. So as long as such a python is caged, it is all well. Okay, but then there are other residents of the building who might be horrified to know that a primal creature like python lives with the native, and that might get loose anytime. Okay, so the 12th house is all about the feet. So Rahu here may indicate discolorations, deformities or infections, and foot problems can include bone spurs, bunions, hammer toes, ingrown toenails, plantar warts, osteoarthritis, as well as athlete's foot. And Rahu is the enemy of the sun who rules the bones, so it can indicate a native having structural foot problems. Okay, now the 12th house is also representative of the left eye. So if there are malefic influences on Rahu, it can indicate severe problems with the eye. For example, a congenital eye defect or injury or infection. Okay. Now, the 12th house is also about pleasures of the bed. And because Rahu is restless and erratic, this may reflect upon the native's irregular sleep patterns or even the sex life of the native. So, in short, Rahu in the 12th house can be dangerous because, the serpent's head will always strike from an invisible quarter. So, people engaged in shamanic practices may deplete their energies and lose, physical vitality. If you're a medium and have this combination, then you can suffer from breakdowns due to strains on the nervous system. Okay, alcoholics and drug addicts, they often overdose and they wind up in hospital emergency rooms. And nymphomaniacs may collapse from sexual exhaustion. So, you know, even I've seen this, that people in pursuit of Kundali awakening sometimes have psychotic hallucinations. So, Rahu, who represents the primordial impulses, isn't well replaced in public, okay, isn't well received in public. And such a native learns early on that some aspects of his or her personality can be demonic. Okay, so such aspects can be practiced or unleashed only in secrecy. Okay, for example, sex is a very private activity, and a native who has a lot of naughty desires can restrict those peculiar desires to the bedroom. Okay, now such a native may be very obsessed with privacy. All right, so he or she might love to keep certain aspects of his or her life secretive, and if their activities are marginally ethical, they may camouflage them under the guise of more acceptable behavior. Okay, and if their activities cannot be kept secret, then these natives, I've seen these natives trying to conceal their identity to protect his or her reputation. Okay, so Rahu in the 12th house is also about incognito traveling. That means living a life in as an unknown person, traveling as an unknown person. Okay, how do you see, how do politicians travel? They have a lot of people around them. Okay, but in cognito means the person is very fond of traveling privately without anyone's notice or without the spotlight. Okay, so such a native may shun social media to avoid exposing aspects of his personal life, for example, appearance, relationships, career, politics, or even social circle. And such natives may use an avatar and become a lurker, checking out other people without revealing himself or herself. And because Rahu is an imposter, the native may represent his may misinterpret or misrepresent his or her capacity for divination, psychic ability, sex, spiritual guidance, and so on. Okay, now Rahu is very obsessive and compulsive, and the 12th house always, in the 12th house, remember, it deals with, or it rules self undoing. Okay, so it can also rule addictions of one kind or another, plague down the native's life. For example, alcoholism, drug addiction, excessive sleeping, food addiction, gambling, or even sexual addiction. And if Rahu is linked to the second lord, substance abuse can also be necessary or likely. If Rahu is linked to the fifth lord, then gambling, you know, can become an addiction. If Rahu is linked to the seventh lord, then sex, of course, becomes an addiction. And if addicted, such a native may develop financial problems, incurring expenses that exceed his or her income until and unless he or she is caught in a cycle of mounting debts. Okay. Now, Rahu represents full power, while the 12th house represents loss. Okay, so bondage and captivity rather, may be recurring themes in the in the lives of the natives. Okay, and although imprisonment for a criminal infraction is possible, it might just as likely be a recreational behavior in which the native enjoys the experience of bondage. And this covers, in some cases bondage may be pleasurable. Okay, in some private cases bondage may be pleasurable, but and again, in some cultures like the Japanese art of kinbaku, rope bondage, is fetishized. Okay, so serpents are capable of stealth, sudden attack and overcoming prey by strangulation or poisoning. So Rahu in the 12th suggests someone capable of raping someone on a date, or maybe kidnapping or forceful confinement, or other forms of captivity, including bondage, isolation, drugs, as well as sexual abuse. Okay, now the 12th house also rules sex. Okay, so Rahu in the 12th is a taboo breaker with a rich fantasy life, and such a native may desire sex in forbidden or erotic places like, like cemetery or smashan or foreign countries, hospital, spa, prisons, and so on. And these people, as I said, they are very intensely private and sexual, and they need to break taboos in order to pierce the veil of reality to see the other side. Okay, and taboos can include adultery, same-sex relations, underage partners, or acting without consent. Okay, and if this Rahu becomes malefic in the 12th house, which is of course the house of solitude, the native may suffer from loneliness, isolation, as well as segregation. And this may be for innocent reasons. Okay, for example, immigration, or as a consequence of a crime by serving jail time. Okay, and with Rahu in the 12th, the the native seeks relief in ashrams, bedrooms, cloisters, foreign lands, hospitals, and so on. Okay, so the purpose of solitude is to find peace through astral travel, communion with ancestral spirits, dreams, meditation, prayer, sleep, ritual, spiritual guidance, or trance. Okay, and these people can be good with divination, dreams, imaginary worlds, and psychic phenomenon. And from a place of sanctuary, okay, like bedroom or retreat or trance-like state, those with special talents may receive wisdom from a higher realm. And the ability to transport oneself can be found in dreams or typical products of, of the human imagination, like imagery, music, poetry, and stories. Okay, and people having Rahu in the 12th may seek recognition for their ability to penetrate the unseen world. For example, the bibliomancer, someone who is clairvoyant or diviner, or exorcist or geomancer, intuitive, necromancer, oracle, prophet, psychic, shaman, or soothsayer. All right. And because Rahu is power and the 12th house rules dreams, so certain spiritual practices are facilitated. For example, you know, conscious or intentional dreaming as practiced by the Tibetan Buddhists. And I've seen people having Rahu in the 12th. These people are legitimately talented, and they always, they always exude positive intentions. But then these people, they may overextend themselves and burn out. Okay, some other people who have this Rahu in the 12th may be frauds or imposters, so their camouflage roles eventually become unsustainable, and they find themselves in over their head. And accounts of Western, occultists like Aleister Crowley, they offer many anecdotes about aspirants who ran afoul of dark forces beyond their ability to control. Okay, and Rahu is always the wanderer, and the 12th house rules to feed, foreign localities and moksha. So such a native may undertake a walking pilgrimage of holy sites. Okay, now Rahu represents science and technology, particularly medicine. So in the 12th, it can manifest as an expertise in medical science, for example, a podiatrist. Okay, and alternatively, because Rahu rules toxins, the specialization might involve poisons and their antidotes. For example, narcotics, or soporifics, anesthetics, and hallucinogens. And this also includes psychotropic drugs, for example, ayahuasca, LSD, peyote, etc. And because Rahu craves recognition, so in the 12th house, it suggests someone whose reputation is made, in a sanctuary, for example, hospital, clinic, spa, ashram, holiday resort, jungle hideaway, or even prison. Okay, and familiar with rules or procedures to access what's hidden, the native could be some sort of gratitude, for example, a diviner, dream interpreter, guru, pathfinder, psychologist, shaman, spiritual medium, translator, visionary, or even a yogi. Okay, and Rahu in the 12th, with people having Rahu in the 12th, will often seek power and pleasure through, undercover means. For example, backroom deals, blackmail, clandestine operations, espionage, extortion, veiled threats, as well as undeclared wars. And such a native is fascinated with what happens behind closed doors. So the arenas of espionage, international intrigue, psychology as well as sex, they will be very, very special for a native. Okay. Now, on a mundane level, this can indicate intermediaries between familiar and strange locales. For example, ambassadors, amnesty, international advocates, anthropologists, bridge builders, doctors without borders, ferry operators, foreign aid workers, immigration lawyers, interpreters, pilots, and tour guides. And because Rahu is an interloper who invades another's private space, this can indicate an anthropologist, archaeologist, burglar, explorer, grave robber, and mentalist, private investigator, psychologist, sex therapist, spy, tomb raider, or even trespasser. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. I hope all of you have some key takeaways from today's video, as well as if you have been catching up with the previous class videos. Every Wednesday we're handling Rahu, and every Tuesday we'll be handling Ketu. Okay, that's what this scheme has been, and it has gone on and on. And the last video that is going to be aired next Tuesday at 8 o'clock is going to be about Ketu. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. Kindly subscribe to the channel, like the content if you find it useful, and please share with your friends and family if you think that they could also benefit from this knowledge. As always, if you want to reach out for a consultation, the number is provided at the description box. So that's it from me. I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.